At dinner that night, I swear I wasn't trying to start anything. I wasn't trying to open old wounds or drag the past back into the room like some unwanted ghost. All I said was, "Just tell me when the reunion is." That's it. One simple sentence. But the moment the words left my mouth, my brother Mark froze, his fork halfway to his lips. And he gave me this look. This look that said he had been waiting years for me to slip. And then he fired back, cold as ice, "You're not invited." For a second, I genuinely thought I misheard him. I stared at him, searching his face for some sign that he was joking, messing with me, teasing me the way brothers sometimes do. But there was nothing. No smirk, no twitch, no laugh. Just that dead-eyed glare like he was finally saying what he'd been wanting to say for a long time. I felt the air go out of my chest. My mom froze. My dad stiffened like he'd swallowed a brick, and even my sister-in-law looked between us like she'd just witnessed a gunshot. And in that horrible silence that followed his words, all I could think was I actually the problem? Had I done something so unforgivable that my own brother, the person I grew up with, could say something that cruel? I didn't argue. I didn't yell back. I didn't make a scene. I just sat there staring at my plate, wondering how things had gone so wrong. And honestly, even now, I still don't know if I was wrong for what came after. So before we get into everything, tell me, if your brother said something like that in front of your whole family, would you let it go? Or would you do exactly what I did? Because I swear, none of this would have happened if we hadn't grown up in such a complicated house. To understand why that one sentence meant so much, why it cracked open years of buried resentment, you have to know what our childhood was like. I'm the middle child, which already set me up to be the one everyone forgot about. Mark is the oldest, the golden child, the responsible one, the one my parents trusted with everything from bills to decisions to traditions. And then there was my younger sister Chloe, the baby, the soft one, the one everyone rushed to protect. Me. I was the one who learned to blend into the background. The one who made jokes so no one noticed I was hurt. The one who handled my own problems because no one else really saw them. Mark and I used to be close when we were kids. We'd build forts, climb trees, pretend we were superheroes saving the world. But as we got older, something changed. He stepped into the role of the eldest child like it was a throne, and I became, well, I don't even know what I became. Maybe an inconvenience. Maybe a shadow. Maybe someone he didn't feel responsible for anymore. Our family reunions were the one thing that used to bring us together. Big chaotic gatherings, cousins running around, uncles telling the same stories every year, aunts criticizing everyone's clothing, and Mark loved those reunions. He thrived in them. He was the star, the guy who everyone praised for his achievements, his job, his life. But me? I always felt like I was attending a performance where Mark was the lead actor and I was the lighting guy nobody thanked. Still, I never skipped them. Not even once. Because family mattered to me in a way I guess I assumed it mattered to everyone else too. But things got worse after college. I went through a rough few years, lost a job, went through a breakup, got into debt, struggled with depression. I didn't tell my family everything, but they could see I wasn't doing great. And instead of giving me support, Mark slipped into this weird superiority complex. He'd make snide comments like, "Maybe if you planned better?" Or, "You should have worked harder." Or, "You're always so reactive." My mom would scold him, but he never apologized. He always acted like being blunt was the same thing as being honest. And I guess that's when the cracks really started forming. Fast forward to about a year before that dinner. Something huge happened. Something that changed everything. The annual family reunion got scheduled for the same week I had been planning something important, my first real break. My first trip out of the country, something I had saved for, worked for, literally clawed my way toward. It wasn't even a big trip, but to me it meant freedom. It meant proving I wasn't the screw-up everyone quietly thought I was. But the moment I told Mark, he made this disappointed face and said, "You're seriously missing the reunion for a vacation?" I tried to explain. I really did. I told him how much it meant to me, how hard I worked to afford it, how I needed that break more than anything. But he didn't care. He told me I was selfish, that reunions mattered more, that family always comes first. Those were his exact words. And the worst part, my parents agreed with him. I was crushed, so I chose to go on my trip anyway. And afterward, when I came back to messages, missed calls, and guilt-tripping texts, something in me just shut off. I felt excluded. Not directly, not openly, but in this subtle coldness they all treated me with. Especially Mark. I could tell he was waiting for me to apologize. I never did. And ever since then, things got strange. They would talk about reunions around me but never to me. They'd mention plans vaguely but never confirm details. Sometimes I didn't even know a reunion had happened until I saw pictures online. I asked them once why no one told me, and they always acted confused like, "Oh, I thought you knew," or "We assumed you were busy." It hurt. More than I let on. Because I kept wondering if maybe they were right. Maybe I was the one who separated myself. Maybe missing that one reunion had marked me as the unreliable one. So that night at dinner, when I said, "Just tell me when the reunion is," it wasn't just a question. It was me trying to reconnect. Trying to show I wasn't the outcast they kept treating me like. But Mark took that tiny little olive branch and snapped it in half in front of everyone. When he said, "You're not invited," it wasn't a joke. It was punishment. It was him saying, "You don't get to come back now that you feel like it." And maybe the worst part was how natural it sounded coming from him, like he had rehearsed it, like he had been waiting for that moment. My mom gasped and told him to stop. My dad muttered his name in warning. But I could barely hear them over the pounding in my ears. I felt this heat creeping up my neck, this mix of humiliation and rage like I had been slapped. And instead of backing down, Mark leaned back in his chair, folded his arms and said, "What? I'm just being honest. He didn't care about the family before. Why should he care now? I swear." The only thing that kept me from throwing my glass at the wall was the fact that everyone was watching. Everyone except Mark's wife, who looked like she wanted to disappear into her seat. I didn't say a word. I didn't trust myself to. Because if I opened my mouth, I would have said something I couldn't take back. Instead, I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and walked out. My mom called after me, but I pretended not to hear her. I kept walking until I got in my car, and when I closed the door behind me, I just sat there shaking, angry, hurt, betrayed, but also something else. Something darker. I don't know if revenge is the right word. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But what I do know is that something snapped inside me that night, because for years I let Mark talk down to me. I let him control the narrative. I let him make me feel less than him. But not anymore. Not after that. In the following days, my family pretended like nothing happened. No apology. No explanation. Just silence, which somehow felt even worse. It was like they were waiting for me to get over it, the same way I always had. But this time I didn't. This time, I started paying attention. I started noticing things I hadn't noticed before. Conversations that stopped when I entered the room. Group chats I wasn't included in. Plans made without me. The more I looked, the more I realized how excluded I had become, and how no one seemed bothered by it. And then something happened that set the rest of this whole disaster into motion. My cousin accidentally mentioned the reunion date in front of me. At a grocery store, of all places. She froze the moment she realized what she'd done, apologized like she'd just committed a crime, and said, "I'm so sorry. I thought you already knew." That was when it hit me. They really weren't planning to tell me, not even as a courtesy. I went home shaking with a mixture of disbelief and outrage, and that's when I decided I needed to do something. Not just for me, but because I couldn't let Mark continue deciding who was worthy of being part of the family. I couldn't let him keep his little throne. I couldn't let him keep controlling everyone like that. But before I explain what I did next, before I tell you how I turned the entire reunion upside down, let me pause for a second and ask you honestly, if your entire family treated you like an outsider, and your own brother humiliated you in front of everyone, would you really just let it slide? Or would you have done exactly what I was planning to do? So when I found out the reunion date by accident, something inside me shifted. I don't know if it was anger, exhaustion, or just the realization that I had let my family treat me like a guest in my own life for too long. I remember sitting on my couch that night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from the dinner, every snide comment Mark had ever made, every dismissive shrug from my parents, every moment I felt invisible or unwanted. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just about one reunion. It was about a pattern. A pattern where Mark always got to decide who belonged and who didn't. Where my parents always backed him, either out of habit or fear of conflict. Where I was expected to be the bigger person, while everyone else got to treat me however they wanted. And I finally snapped, not in a dramatic way, not in some screaming fit, breaking plates kind of way, but in a quiet, focused, purposeful way that felt colder than any rage I'd ever felt before. I decided that if they didn't want me at the reunion, I'd go anyway, on my own terms. Not to beg, not to grovel, not to be included, but to show them exactly who I had become while they were busy looking down on me. I wasn't going to ruin anything. Not at first. I just needed answers. I needed to know why my family had chosen to treat me like this. And I needed to confront the one person who started it all, Mark. But I had to be smart about it. If I tried to bring it up before the reunion, they'd shut me down or pretend it was all in my head. So I waited. Patiently. Silently. I pretended everything was normal. I answered my parents' texts. I made small talk with my sister. I didn't push. And ironically, the calmer I acted, the more comfortable they became. My mom even called me one night saying she missed me, completely oblivious to the fact that they were planning a whole family gathering without telling me. That phone call almost broke me. Not because she lied, but because she didn't even think about what she was doing. She genuinely didn't see the problem. And that hurt more than Mark's cruelty. The reunion was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon at my Uncle Ron's property. A big countryside place with acres of open field, a barn, and enough space to fit every branch of the family tree. They'd been hosting reunions there for years, and I knew exactly how it would go. The big welcome banner, the tables covered with food, the speakers blasting old nostalgic songs, the kids running around, the adults drinking beer and talking about the past. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Mark would be holding court, surrounded by relatives praising him for his successes, his marriage, his career, his perfect life. He'd love that. He always did. I knew if I wanted to confront him, it had to be on his turf. In public. In front of the same people he used as his audience. So I showed up. The moment I turned my car into the gravel driveway, I felt my heart pounding. There were dozens of cars lined up. Laughter echoed across the field. The smell of barbecue filled the air. And for a second, I felt a wave of fear. What if this was a mistake? What if they told me to leave? What if showing up proved that I was the problem? But then I reminded myself they were the ones hiding things. They were the ones lying. They were the ones who thought I wasn't worthy of being here. And the second I thought that, my nerves hardened into resolve. I parked the car, stepped out, and walked toward the gathering. People noticed me slowly, like a wave moving across the crowd. Some looked surprised. Some looked confused. Some looked guilty. And then there was Mark. He was standing near the grill, beer in hand, laughing with two of our cousins. When he saw me, he stopped mid-laugh. His face dropped, his jaw clenched. And in that instant, I knew he wasn't just annoyed. I had ruined something for him just by existing there. I walked up calmly, forcing myself not to look away. "Hey," I said, my voice steady. He stared at me like I'd shown up covered in blood. "What are you doing here?" he asked. I shrugged. "It's the family reunion. Why wouldn't I be here?" His eye twitched. "You weren't invited. And yet, here I am." The silence that followed was heavy. People nearby pretended not to eavesdrop, even though every single one of them was listening. My mom hurried over, looking pale. "Sweetheart, we didn't think you," she started, but I held up my hand. "No, not right now. I want to hear it from him." I pointed directly at Mark. "Say it. Say why I wasn't invited." His jaw tightened. "Because you don't take this family seriously," he spat. "Because you chose a stupid trip over us. Because you only care when it's convenient for you." My heart hammered in my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm. "So missing one reunion, Onan, means I get banned forever." "You didn't just miss it," he snapped. "You bailed. You abandoned us." "I didn't abandon anyone," I said quietly. I took a break. For my own mental health. For once. "Oh, please," he scoffed. "You always act like you're some victim. Like everything is so hard for you, and everyone else should bow down to your feelings." And that right there, those words, were the moment everything clicked. He didn't see me as a birther. He saw me as a burden. Someone he had to tolerate. Someone who made him look bad. Someone unworthy. I took a deep breath. "Do you even hear yourself? You've been talking down to me for years. You exclude me, judge me, mock me. That's not true," he barked. "Really? Then answer me honestly. Were you ever planning to tell me about today?" He hesitated just for a second. But that hesitation was enough. Everyone around us saw it. And suddenly, the guilt he had been trying to hide flickered across his face like a shadow. "I didn't think you'd care," he muttered. "That's a lie," I said. "You didn't want me here. Just say it." I will never forget the way he looked at me then. Like he was a king forced to speak to a peasant. "Fine," he said, loud enough for everyone around us to hear. "I didn't want you here. You make everything complicated. You always have something going on. You always drag things down. I wanted one peaceful day without dealing with you." My chest tightened, not because it hurt, though it did, but because he said it so easily, so proudly. Like cruelty was a skill he had mastered. And for a moment, all I could do was stare at him, realizing that no matter what I did, no matter how much I tried, he had already decided who I was in his head. And nothing was going to change that. I nodded slowly. Okay, I said. Okay, good. Thank you for finally saying it. He blinked, confused. What? You heard me, I said. Thank you. Because now everyone here just heard you admit that this wasn't about me missing a reunion. It was about control. It was about punishing me. It was about making sure I stay in the place you assigned to me years ago. But guess what? I'm done with that. People around us shifted awkwardly. Some looked guilty. Some looked angry, mostly at him. But before the tension escalated, I said something I had been holding onto for years. I'm not the screw-up you think I am. I struggled, yeah? But I didn't give up. I rebuilt my life without any of you noticing. I have a stable job now. I paid off my debts. I've been going to therapy. I've been taking care of myself, something none of you ever bothered to ask about. And I'm proud of myself for that. Even if none of you are. My mom covered her mouth, eyes watering. My dad looked down at the ground. My sister stepped closer to me like she wanted to defend me but didn't know how. But Mark, oh no, Mark just scoffed. So what? You want applause? You want us to treat you like a hero. You're acting pathetic. That was it. The final straw. The moment everything inside me boiled over. I stepped closer to him, lowering my voice so only he could hear the first part. No, I don't want applause. I just want respect. Something you're incapable of giving. Then I raised my voice. And if you really think I'm pathetic, then why are you so obsessed with pushing me down? Why does my life bother you so much? He opened his mouth, but nothing came out, and his silence spoke louder than any insult. Finally, he was speechless. What's wrong, Mark? I pressed, scared that if I get my life together, you won't look so perfect anymore. That hit him hard. I could see it in the way his face twisted. Because the truth was he needed me to be the screw-up. He needed that contrast to feel superior. Before he could respond, before he could spin it, before he could regain control, I turned to the crowd. Listen, I said loudly. I'm not here to ruin anything. I only came to ask why I was being pushed out of my own family. And now I have my answer. People murmured. A few nodded. A few avoided eye contact. My aunt stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder and whispering, "You should have been invited." And then something unexpected happened. My cousin, the same one who accidentally told me the date, spoke up. "He's right," she said, pointing at Mark. "This isn't fair. He's family. He deserves to be here." Others chimed in. "We all miss you. You should have been told." This was wrong. The watching Mark's face in that moment was surreal. He wasn't just angry, he was exposed. His entire facade cracked. The one thing he always relied on, being the hero, the leader, the golden child, was falling apart, and I didn't even have to manipulate anything. I just had to show up. He finally snapped. "This is ridiculous," he shouted. "You're all taking his side." After everything, my mom stepped forward. "Mark," she said quietly, "this was wrong." And for the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. Because the control he had over everyone was slipping away. He pointed at me. "You did this. You're turning everyone against me?" I shook my head. "No, Mark, you did that yourself." He stormed off, muttering under his breath, his wife chasing after him. The crowd slowly dispersed, people whispering, arguing, consoling me, criticizing him. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt drained, exhausted, like years of pressure had finally burst. My mom hugged me and apologized over and over again. My dad put a hand on my shoulder and said he was proud of me for standing up for myself. My sister whispered that she'd been wanting to say something to him for years. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Not fully understood, but seen, and that meant something. I didn't stay long after that. I didn't want to make things worse. I said my goodbyes and walked back to my car. Right as I was about to leave, Mark's wife came up to me. She looked exhausted, embarrassed, and sad. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "He shouldn't have spoken to you like that. He's been stressed. But that's no excuse." I sighed. "I don't hate him," I said. I want him to respect me." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'll talk to him, I promise." I didn't know if that would change anything. But it was something. The drive home was quiet, peaceful even. When I got home, I sat on my couch again, the same spot where I had been plotting everything days earlier. But this time I felt lighter. Like I had finally taken back a part of myself I had lost. But the story doesn't end there. No, the aftermath was its own storm. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. Some relatives thanking me for finally standing up to Mark. some apologizing for not noticing how I had been treated. A few angry messages from Mark, calling me selfish, dramatic, a manipulator. I didn't respond, not yet. 2 days later, he showed up at my house. He didn't knock gently. He pounded on the door like he was trying to break it down. I opened the door, bracing myself. His face was red, his eyes bloodshot. "You humiliated me," he said, no greeting, no hesitation. "You humiliated yourself," I replied. "That reunion was supposed to be perfect," he barked. "Perfect for who? You?" I asked. He didn't answer. "You need to grow up," he said finally. "You can't keep acting like you're entitled to everything." That caught me off guard. Entitled. You're the one who thinks you get to decide who's part of the family and who's not. He clenched his jaw. "I'm tired of cleaning up after your messes." I laughed bitterly. "What messes? I rebuilt my life without you even noticing. That's not the point," he snapped. "Then what is?" He hesitated, and for the first time ever, he looked vulnerable. "It's always been my job to keep this family together," he said quietly. "And every time you struggled, every time you messed up, every time you fell behind, I felt like I failed." I stared at him, stunned. I had never heard him speak like that before. He continued, his voice shaking. "I didn't know how to help you. I didn't know what to say. And when you started pulling away, I got angry. Because I thought you didn't need us anymore. I thought you didn't need me." I swallowed hard. I always needed family. "I just didn't need your judgment." He rubbed his face. I know I screwed up." Silence hung between us. Heavy, complicated silence. "I'm not asking you to be perfect," I said softly. "I'm just asking you to treat me like your brother. Not like a project. Not like a problem." He nodded slowly. "I can try." It wasn't a full apology. It wasn't enough. But it was something. Something real. Something human. Something honest. I opened the door wider. "Come inside," I said. "We should talk." And for the first time in a long while he did. We talked for hours. About childhood. About resentment. About misunderstandings. About everything we never said. It wasn't easy. It wasn't clean. It wasn't magically healing everything. But it was a start. And maybe that's all we ever needed. A start instead of silence. The following weeks were awkward. My family tried to go back to normal, but normal had been shattered. My mom kept checking on me. My dad tried stepping up more. My sister confronted Mark herself, telling him to never talk to me that way again. The reunion drama became the story of the year, the thing everyone whispered about, analyzed, debated. But surprisingly, many of them sided with me. Not because they hated Mark, but because they recognized something true. I had been excluded unfairly. And the only reason it went on for so long was because I let it. I had been quiet. Too forgiving. Too invisible. Not anymore. Months later, when the next family gathering came around, guess who texted me first? "Mark, hey, the barbecue is on Sunday. You coming?" I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I was unsure, but because it felt strange to be included again. Strange but right? "Yeah," I replied. "I'll be there." And I was. And this time, nobody ignored me. Nobody left me out. Nobody treated me like background noise. Mark and I weren't best friends overnight, but we were talking, learning, trying, and honestly that was enough for me. So was I wrong for showing up to the reunion anyway? Was I wrong for confronting him in front of everyone? Was I wrong for refusing to be pushed out of my own family? I don't know. Maybe I handled it messily. Maybe I should have spoken to him in private. Maybe I should have walked away earlier. But here's what I do know: standing up for myself changed everything. And maybe it was overdue.